Hey girl, so glad that you tuned in. My name's Bethany, and this is the Make Up Your Mind channel. You're listening to episode number 27. Whether you're actually putting on your makeup, maybe you're getting ready for work or school, wherever life finds you today, I hope that you remember that there are people that are for you, that are cheering you on to succeed. Today, I hope I get to be one of those people standing as a cheerleader on the sideline of your life, reminding you to make up your mind all day long about the small things that add up to huge things later on. We have been in a series on identity for this entire year, so 2021. So several weeks. We've covered topics like body image, like comparison, tons of interviews with fun guests. So if you haven't gotten to listen to any of those, you should definitely go back and do some back trailing and listen to some of those fun episodes. Last week we talked about labels, and this week's episode is kind of a follow-up to that. It's called Words Can Hurt or Heal. So let's get to it. So I don't know if you guys follow me on Instagram or not, but if you don't, you should probably go give me a follow. A couple weeks ago, I opened my Ipsy subscription on Instagram for you guys all to watch me opening all of those things up. And one of my favorite things I got out of that package was this. It is a lip scrub by Naked Cosmetics. You guys, this came at the right time for me because we had a big snow weekend. I don't know if you guys live in the Pacific Northwest like I do, but we had a big snow dump happen, and my lips, between the masks and the cold weather, I think my lips were just super chapped. So I did a quick little lip scrub with this, and it helped so much. It was just the right amount of exfoliation. You guys can go online and make your own lip scrub too if you don't want to purchase this. You can purchase it on Naked Cosmetics website, but there's also recipes where you can make it with coconut oil, sugar, and some essential oils. The one thing I would recommend is going lightly on your lips because they are very thin skin and the skin can break very easily. So light and gentle, as well as make sure you moisturize up afterwards. But I'm telling you guys, it's definitely a step up in your makeup routine game, your spa day game, whatever you want to do. Okay, so I don't know if you guys listened to last week's episode on labels, but that's what we talked about last week. And I'm going to do a quick little follow-up because, as usual, I am long-winded and I can't get everything out in one episode. So you guys are probably used to that by now, follow-up episodes to follow-up episodes because I'm so long-winded. Thank you to all of you who listen to me on a regular basis. Just dump all my thoughts in your lap every single week. I love you all. So last week we talked a lot about how labels work. I used the example of the beginning of 10 Things I Hate About You, where they go into the school and the guy is labeling all these groups of people as the jocks, the cheerleaders, the nerds, etc., etc. I think sometimes these labels are what we use to categorize people in our minds so that we can kind of figure out how we relate to somebody else. It's kind of a weird thing that I think everyone does. Most of the time, we keep those labels in our minds. Now, when I say labels and when I say boxes or categories, really what I'm talking about here is judgments. Because when they're in our minds, they're kind of like these just big judgy thoughts we have towards others. So I'm going to use those terms interchangeably in this episode. Sometimes I'll say boxes, categories, labels, or judgments. And that's really what it is. I know all of you have heard someone say, "Don't judge me," or something like that along those lines. And that's essentially what we're talking about by putting labels on people. Most of the time, those labels that we put on people or those judgments we make about them don't leave our minds most of the time. Sometimes, in the right circumstance, they will sneak out of our mouths and into the open air with our words. Sometimes there'll be a trying moment where you are in an intense situation and how you really feel about that other person kind of just slips out. Have you ever been there? I've definitely been there. Maybe it might be things like you're a two-face, or you are a know-it-all, or maybe what a snake they are, or whatever. You can let those things slip out of your mouth that you've labeled them as already in your mind. And I don't know about you, but once I have someone labeled in my mind as a certain way of being, most of the time it's a negative emotion too. Like most of the time, these boxes that we make and these categories we put people in our minds are pretty much negative. Once I have put them in a category in my mind, I only see them that way. That's how I see all of their words, all of their actions, all of the things they do, all of their style, all of like their whole persona becomes that in my mind. Even if they're doing something contrary, I reason myself back to, no, they're actually just a two-face, or no, they're actually just a class clown, whatever it is, however you have them labeled. And the more I do that, the more I see what I want to see in them. Now, if I let it slip out of my mouth, it gets even worse. Once I've let it out of my mouth, then other people hear it and other people believe it and agree with it and also perpetuate it towards that other person. So then it becomes even worse because then my entire community is talking about this other person being this certain way. And then it just perpetuates how I see them. People do this all the time. We all do it all the time, whether it's harmless and silly or it's actually intense and damaging. We put people in these boxes, and a lot of the time they're based off of experiences that we've had in our past with people that are similar. Something happened to me one time. Dionis and I were youth pastors, and we were at a football game, and we were just hanging out in the stands, eating candy. This was obviously pre-COVID, with a bunch of our students, and we were just hanging out. There was another student there that didn't attend our youth ministry, and he didn't know us. He didn't know we were youth pastors. He had no idea. So he was just hanging out and eating candy with us, whatever. And, what happened was eventually one of the students that did attend our youth ministry let loose that we were youth pastors. Well, once this other student was aware of that, he automatically labeled us based on probably some prior experience that he had had with another pastor in his world. His entire demeanor towards us changed. He had been fine, upbeat, laughing, and then once he was made aware of that, he became cold and eventually moved on to another group to hang out with. It could have been really hurtful towards Dionis and I, but it had already happened to us so many times that we were pretty used to that pastor label being put on us. And it's just one that people have a lot of emotions tied to, whether they're on either side of what they believe. But what I was really sad for was this student, because he will forever have pastors in this small box in his mind. And as soon as he meets one, he'll label them that way. He'll pass judgment on them in that way, just like he did with us. Once he had categorized me, that's all he could see. So flipping the script a little bit, if you remember, last week I actually talked about an experience I had when someone had labeled me an emotional monster. It was a time where there was a label that was spoken out loud. Instead of that person quietly keeping their judgment to themselves, they were riled up enough to speak it out loud, and that label sunk deep into my heart. I think one of the worst things that we can do as humans is speak our judgments out loud to people, is speak out the labels that we have carried around in our hearts. Ladies, can we just make a pact right now that we are not going to do that? We are going to give people many chances before we put them mentally into boxes in our minds, mentally passing judgments on people. Let's be people that give people many chances before that happens. You never know where someone's coming from. You never know what someone's actually like. You can't categorize them based on your previous experiences, even though that's what we want to do in our minds. You never know if their grandma died that day and that's why they're acting that way. You never know if their parents are getting divorced. You just never know. So before we pass judgments and we put them in these boxes emotionally in our minds, let's give them opportunity to be who they are. Let's see them with unbiased eyes. Because I tell you this The judgment you pass in your heart, whatever you believe about them, will eventually come out of your mouth. The Bible says, out of your heart, the mouth speaks. You guys, that day was super hard for me to get through. It was hard for quite a while, actually. When that person labeled me emotional, it was a deep wound in my soul. And I know it from experience that when we speak these labels out loud, our words have the power of destruction. We can pretend all we want that we have thick skin towards what other people say about us, or we don't care what other people say about us. But I know deep down in your heart, you do care, and those words do hurt. It's the human condition, so don't pretend like it doesn't. The Bible also says that the tongue, or our words, have the power of life and death. That is crazy. Could you imagine killing someone with your words? What you say about someone has the ability to knock them off their feet emotionally. What you say out loud, the judgments and the labels that you put on that person, have the ability to completely change the trajectory of their life. I have known people that once something is spoken to them about their identity in a negative light, it actually affects them in such a deep way that they end up having self-destructive behaviors. It goes so deep into their hearts that they no longer can hear a good thing spoken about who they really are. Even if it's true, even if it's the truth about them, they can't believe it any longer. I've known people where words spoken to them have caused suicidal thoughts, sometimes even suicidal actions. Words have the power of life and death. Words have the power of destruction or life. They can destroy or they can build. So now what? In the spirit of finding our identity, of knowing who we are and whose we are, ladies, I just want to put this out there. What if we were firstly not judgmental in our minds? What if we withheld our judgments? But also, what if we were identity givers? Just like you can label someone negatively, whether in your mind or out loud, you can also speak the good that you see about someone else. I fail to do this all the time. I think good things about other people. I think other people are awesome and excellent all the time. But do I say it? No. What if we started to pipe up when we saw something beautiful that someone else is doing around us? What if we started to call out the beauty that's in other people, the goodness that's in other people? What if we started to use our words to affirm other people's identity rather than tearing it down? Can you think of a time where someone has done this for you? Maybe it's a teacher, maybe it's a parent, maybe it's a youth pastor or a mentor, maybe it was a friend or a cousin, where someone spoke something about you, called something about you out that was true, that boosted your identity in a healthy way, who spoke something about you that was true and that was beautiful and that was right and that was good. If you've had that happen, a lot of times it can be kind of hard to receive it. It can be really hard to believe it. But what if we got so good at doing that it actually started to sink into other people's lives and hearts and minds? What if the people that we've already made judgments towards in our minds, maybe even out loud, what if those people, and they're usually the people that irritate us, that get us pissed off, that we don't want to be around, that we really dislike, those are usually the people we've already passed our judgments on. Am I right? What if instead we zoomed out in our relationship towards those people and we actually were able to find the beauty in those people? What if we were actually able to speak to them in a way that was loving and kind and actually promoted healthy identity rather than sat back and judged them? Because they're humans just like we are. What if we saw them that way? What if we saw them with eyes of compassion? What if we saw the soft heart that's actually within that hard exterior that they probably have? Because we all do. We all have that soft interior that we're trying to protect. Every single human at their core needs love and affirmation. Will you be a person that gives that identity? In the Bible, Luke 6:35-36, it says this: I tell you, love your enemies. This is Jesus talking. He says, love your enemies, even those people that you've already passed judgments on that irritate the crap out of you, okay? Help and give without expecting a return. I promise you'll never regret it, says Jesus. Live out this God-created identity the way the Father lives towards us, generously and graciously, even when we're at our worst. Our Father is kind, so you be kind. Wow. May we operate how God operates towards us in love and generosity, even when we're at our most annoying towards Him. May we operate that way towards others. Girl, I am so glad that you joined me this week for one of our last talks on identity. It was so good to see you. Remember today that you are valuable, you are seen, and you are loved. Girl, if you have someone in your life that really encourages you, that really takes pride in your growth, maybe it's a mentor, a youth pastor, a parent, a grandparent, an aunt, or an uncle, whoever that person is, direct them to my Patreon account because I would love to collaborate more with them on content that they believe will be good for you, as well as it's a great place for that person to sponsor this channel and what we're doing here at Make Up Your Mind Movement. Girl, be sure to subscribe wherever you're consuming this content, whether it's on Instagram, YouTube, or any of the podcast platforms. It was so good to see you this week. DM me on Instagram. I'd love to hear from you. And until then, I will see you on the socials. Catch you later.